Hello everyone, I'm Caitlin Teeter, and on today's Teeter Tales, I'm going to be doing a review of The Mysterious Mr. Quin by Agatha Christie. The Mysterious Mr. Quin is a short story collection of mysteries, and unlike her more well-known works, this collection features the characters of Mr. Satterthwaite and Mr. Quin, and there is a supernatural hint to many of the stories. I've been going through and listening to Christie's Poirot and Marple books. I'll make videos on those once I finish those series, but after a recommendation from a friend, I decided to listen to this collection. For this review, I'll mostly be talking about the book as a whole, rather than individual stories, so I won't be getting into spoilers for this collection. There will be chapters in the description, as always, so let's go ahead and get started. Mr. Satterthwaite is an elderly bachelor who finds himself in the circles of high society in England. He hasn't had much life experience of his own, but he is an expert people watcher. Some excitement is thrown his way when the mysterious Mr. Quin arrives. Whenever Mr. Quin appears, mysteries of death and love are sure to follow. Recurring themes for these stories are murder, suicide, and romance. Not all stories in the collection involve all three, but all stories do have at least one of these elements. The format for each story involves Mr. Quin providing a catalyst for Mr. Satterthwaite to solve a mystery or dilemma. As I mentioned earlier, several of these stories have light supernatural elements, which I'll get into a bit more in the character section of this review. All of these stories are told in the third person. Sometimes the narrator is colored by Mr. Satterthwaite's voice, or it can be very detached and even passing judgment on Mr. Satterthwaite. The book demonstrates Christie's typical well-composed prose. There were some descriptors or sentences that I found especially amusing, but I would say this book is pretty standard for her writing. If you've read some of her other books, then you know what to expect with the writing style. The quality of the mysteries in this book varied greatly from story to story. Some had pretty obvious solutions, such as The Man from the Sea, while others came out of nowhere, like The Voice in the Dark, and some were even absurd, like The Face of Helen. Still, many of these stories had very enjoyable plots, and they stood out from each other. I quite liked some of the mysteries, like The Shadow on the Glass, and none of them were boring. These mysteries are very different from Christie's other books. I didn't find myself compelled to guess who the culprit was for most of these narratives, but I was instead more interested in seeing what details would allow Mr. Satterthwaite to solve the case. Before discussing Satterthwaite and Quin, I want to touch on the characters in the individual stories. I didn't find any of the characters who had single appearances to be that interesting. They served their purposes in the stories, but none of them stood out as particularly notable. The real characters to focus on in this book are Satterthwaite and Quin. Mr. Satterthwaite is a lovely character. Very quickly, the reader realizes that he is a man who believes himself to be very knowledgeable about the world. And he is to an extent. Satterthwaite has observed much in his life, but his own personal experiences are very limited. This makes for a fun and somewhat hypocritical protagonist. His means of solving the mystery stem solely from his keen and often snoopy observations, with a brief hint from Mr. Quin to get things rolling. Speaking of which, Mr. Quin is an enigma of a character. Throughout the collection, the reader comes to realize that Mr. Quin is very likely a supernatural being, though what exactly he is never answered. At times, he suggests that he acts on behalf of the dead, at others, he's connected to love, and of course, he's also connected to death. Mr. Quin is the element that makes these stories stand out from Christie's other mysteries. While Mr. Satterthwaite is the likable but unlikely protagonist, Mr. Quin is the unsolved mystery of this book. Pairing these two characters together makes for a very unique and entertaining read. There wasn't anything too extreme to worry about in this collection, though there was a wide variety of the kind of content that appears in the book. First, this collection is primarily made up of murder stories. As such, there's some violence in describing how characters have been shot, drowned, or killed in other ways, but Christie never goes into descriptive detail. The book can also be a bit creepy at times. As previously mentioned, Mr. Quin has an implied supernatural essence to his character. There's also some generally spooky stories. The last story actually gave me a bit of the heebie-jeebies, but the book is largely pretty tame in this regard. One of the stories features a seance, and there are allusions in other stories to ghosts and other supernatural phenomena. The book generally concludes that there's nothing behind these stories. While the book couldn't be called sexual in any way, several of the stories do revolve around inherently sexual topics. Some mysteries involve characters having affairs. The most descriptive this gets is them being observed kissing. And one story revolves around two people having had a one night stand in the past. There's also the use of occasional mild profanities, such as the H and D words, but it's not frequent. Characters will drink and smoke. The main thing I'll mention for this collection is that suicide is an essential part to many of these stories. In fact, the mystery of many of these narratives revolves around if a person's death was suicide or murder. There are also many stories which have characters who have the intention to kill themselves. This book generally takes a negative view of suicide, but I still wanted to mention its frequent use in the collection. After several Poirot books, The Mysterious Mr. Quin is a significant departure from what I've come to expect from Christie. While some Poirot books lean into the absurd, they have not strayed into the supernatural. That's where this book really stands out. Even though I found the format of Mr. Quin giving Mr. Satterthwaite subtle cues made for a less engaging mystery, I still very much enjoyed this collection. The dynamic between Satterthwaite and Quin was fun, and I spent a long time discussing the book's ending with my friend who recommended this collection. I would definitely recommend this book to others who enjoy Christie's writing, and to those who enjoy short mysteries with an air of the supernatural about them. This book would also be great if you enjoy your mysteries with a well developed character as a detective. I hope that you enjoyed this review and that it's helpful in determining if you'll read The Mysterious Mr. Quin. Thanks for watching. Bye!